Baltimore City Council Budget and Appropriations Committee. We're going to get started. This is 11:30 session, Department of General Services. I'm joined by Vice Chair of the committee, Councilman Leon Pickett from the 7th District, Councilman Bill Henry from the 4th District, Councilman Ryan Dorsey from the 3rd District, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark from the 14th District, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer from the 5th District, Vice President of the City Council, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton from the 6th District, Kara Kuntz from the Council President's Office, his legislative director is here, Karan Banks from the Mayor's Office, Marguerite Curran, staff to the committee, and I think that covers everyone. We have you down from 11:30 to 12:30. Steve, thanks for coming. If you could quickly introduce your team and then keep your presentation as somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 minutes, and then we can get to questions from the council.
Great. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. Quickly run through my top-level staff. Directly to my right is Burke Attila. He's my CFO. Right here is Bob Gibson. He is the Chief of Fleet. Steve Strickland. He is the Chief of Maintenance. Bambi Stevens, Chief of Design and Construction. Chichi Niaga Nash, Deputy Chief of Fleet. Gary Holland, my Chief of Staff. Ben Broche, Deputy CFO. Ryan Trout, he's our PIO/Legislative Affairs. Jackson Gilman Forlini, Historic Properties Coordinator. And Terrence Jennings, Real Estate Agent. And Torena Thomas, Special Projects and overall handy woman.
Before we get started, I also want to introduce Councilman Robert Stokes from the 12th District, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed from the 13th District. Steve, you may hear us blurt out random numbers when we're talking about documentation requests after you get done with your presentation. We started incrementally at 1, so I think we've done 12. So the first one will be 13. We'll just ask that your team provide whatever documentation requests, if any, to Marguerite for the committee. So,
okay. Are you guys going to send us a letter, or are we just going to write it down here?
We've just been writing it down here.
Okay.
Sure. So
cool.
But we can send something over in writing if you guys need clarification. But I
Okay.
think everything so far today has been pretty straightforward.
Great. All right. And just wanted to talk briefly. Just the building and fleet needs in our city are really great, but due to finding some cost savings and better fiscal management and more proactive repairs, we've been able to make a lot of positive improvements to services. So, for example, the average age of a vehicle has gone down from 9.2 to 7.4 years over the past few years, which has decreased vehicle downtime. This is really evident during snow season, where the past 3 years we've been able to have all the vehicles that we need, or provide DOT and the other agencies with all the vehicles needed at all times. About 5 or 7 years ago, back during the beginning of the recession, our cleaning contracts were cut back to a ridiculously low level. Now, because of improvements, we have a newer cleaning contract. So instead of just 1 vacuuming a week, which is ridiculous, we've got 2 or 3. And also our 24-hour units have expanded service. Finally, for the last 6 or 7 years, we haven't had a floor stripping and waxing contract, which is, unheard of. But now we have it, and they're going through the buildings right now. So by July, every place that has the need for stripping and waxing is going to have it. Again, like I said, these have been ignored for over 5 years. Also, because of the improvements and the cost savings that we have, we've been able to take that money and spend it back into the community. I'm most proud to announce that we have a great partnership going between Fleet Management and Baltimore City Public Schools. This year, we've had 3 Baltimore City Public High School students come into Fleet and be students there. So they have a work-study student program. It's worked out amazing. 2 of the 3 students are going to stay with us over the summer, and if they continue to work well with us, we're going to try our best to keep them. One of them is joining the military. Next year, we're going to be going, right now we've already interviewed with the kids from the schools, and we're going to have hopefully up to 6 more starting this summer and into next year. So it's a really strong, positive thing for the community and the students, but it's also really good because we are also an aging workforce. The mechanics are aging dramatically, and so to have more mechanics come in directly from Fleet, it's really going to be a strong partnership. And Bob, the Chief of Fleet, has been very pleased with their willingness to learn and their attitudes. So it's been a great program so far, and we're looking to expand it a little bit. Also, one thing, I previously worked for the police department, and one of my biggest concerns was that people had to walk around to the back to 3 or 4 of the stations, which wasn't conducive to building relationships with the community. Because of, we were able to free up some cash, we've opened the Eastern District. Southeast District is nearly complete and will be open soon, and Southwestern District is under construction. So that way, the communities will be able to enter the front of their districts. And also, we've also created a mobile maintenance unit that goes to police districts, CACs, and other outlying buildings. They make small repairs, but they've been trained to focus on finding issues within these buildings. And they actually even have iPads now to enter the information directly. So not only they're kind of a small handyman fix-it, plus a documenter of issues, larger issues in the building, which is good because the outlying buildings don't have as many people in them as the downtown building. So that crew has actually been a really a big success so far, and we want to keep growing that way. Overall, the challenge is still great, as many of our buildings are past their prime. However, the cost savings and the improvements we made, we believe are going to continue to show in the future. Let me just jump into the presentation. So just overall, we've got, I think, 4 services. First one is fleet management. It's responsible for the purchase, maintaining, and outfitting of vehicles and other equipment. We've got over 5,600 vehicles, so just about every vehicle you can think of, we're in charge of either fixing or buying it, except for certain leased vehicles. But anyway, if it's owned by the city, we fix it. Overall, the fleet's been working well. The maintenance and the availability has been amazing. Through recent years, certain agencies have increased their fleet, have increased their services without a major increase in the size of the fleet. So there's many more medic runs and more medics out on the streets than there were 3 years ago, and there's also many more sweepers out on the streets every day. So if we're not here to do the fleet work, the work doesn't get done. So I've been very proud of the improvements in fleet over the couple years. Administration, it's just the budget of, Administration is just the budget of the central administration group. We focus on our HR group, me, Gary, our fiscal group, and then some other, and also our business process improvement office, which is an office we have of 4 employees that are focused on small improvements, so lean government initiatives and other things to implement programs that improve the day-to-day workings of the inside of city government. Really small ball stuff that pays off in the long run. Next is facilities management. Facilities management, again, probably the most frequently noticed service. Again, we have over 500 municipal buildings, but 82 core buildings owned by us. Again, just to mention, we do not repair water and wastewater or recs and parks buildings unless upon request. And so, what we've really been doing is focusing on preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance is something that wasn't really done much here before. And preventative maintenance is a best management practice and standard in the industry. So we're increasing the number of preventative maintenance work orders we do each year to keep our HVAC systems running, our roofs running, and we've got our Archibus computer system, which we've invested a lot of manpower in to ensure that when that work gets done on a frequent basis, as opposed to just waiting for something to break and then repairing it. Then finally, design and construction major projects. This is, again, just our major projects, which is the bigger projects which is the bigger projects that we do. So this would be major elevator repairs, major roof repairs. Maintenance is the small bore stuff, the cleaning, the electricity, and whatever we can do in-house or with a smaller contract. But these are the contracts that are usually 100K or 200K or above. And this is the major work. Again, like I said before, we've got a lot of our buildings are past their prime. We're trying to use the dollars we have as best we can, and I think we've seen some improvements over time. But again, more improvements are always needed. All right, and that's the presentation. We could jump into questions.
Thanks, Steve. We've been joined by Councilman Brandon Scott from the 2nd District, Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District, Council President Jack Young, and we have Karen Stokes from the Mayor's Office with us. First off, we have Councilman Bill Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. It's a question about fleet, and it's partially conceptual. I was approached by someone who had an idea for having the city put together a rotating system of using city buses and city drivers to move kids from city schools to various arts and culture institutions, because the institutions have money from the state to pay admission for city school students, but there wasn't any money for the individual schools to get the kids to the institutions. And the thought was, if we could find some third source of money to pay, and here's the question: are there enough buses and drivers involved to move any legitimate number of kids from schools to museums and the zoo and such on a day-by-day basis, or would we have to buy more buses and hire more drivers if we wanted to do that at scale?
Okay, so just to punt this question slightly. So DGS, and actually this is the first project I ever worked on in the city 12 years ago. DGS manages schools and repairs schools vehicles except for their buses. So they have their own in-house setup with their buses. So any type of maintenance truck or a pothole truck or a car, we repair those. And we have a contractual relationship where they pay us money for those repairs.
But do we own any buses?
So we
don't own any
We
buses.
own one bus, two? We own 2 buses, but one is being put out of commission. And then the circulator owns a fair number of buses, but we
Right, yeah,
don't
that's
maintain
different.
those.
So-
2 buses? Okay.
So if we wanted to do something like this, we would either have to figure out how to use the school system's buses to do it, or we would have to buy more buses.
Circulator buses, we pay for them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing at him.
Yeah, I mean, or you might consider a rental agreement of some type, or a lease, agreement, or something like that.
Okay. You got to use the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Just pull it out. Yeah. there.
Hello.
Speak into the mic, though, Bob.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know if maybe anybody thought maybe asking Viola if they might want to do it as like, gratis for the city and take a tax write-off on it.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's, how far you've been in this.
I'm funding the whole service for them.
I'm sorry, he's not microphoned, but he's not mic'd, but we can hear him clearly up at this end, and so we
Okay.
laugh. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council President Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go to page 726. No, I mean page 180, service 726. And it talks about a new position being created for an architect, but the change table described the position being created as professional service support to provide benchmarking and analysis. And the salary for this position on this page is 50, but the service salary table, if you turn the page to 182, lists the new salary at 61,000. Can you please provide the Budget Committee with this position's position description, the proposed salary for the position, and details of what their job will entail?
Okay,
There seemed to be some discrepancy in this budget book.
Okay.
There's been a lot of them in this budget book.
All right, let me, so you said on page 180,
Yes, if you go to 180 and you look where it talks about the funded professional service benchmark analysis,
okay,
it has 50,000,
see that.
okay? Then when you switch over to page 182, it has the position listed at 61,000.
Which position is it there?
It's just a new position.
I may.
Yep. Here we go.
So,
Was it two positions?
no, there's one position that is going to be the architect one. It is a new position, but the way that the city currently works with creations, the new position is a blanket classification that we would have to put in the budget. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, so that the position count will show up in this table. It doesn't create a problem for you when you're looking at it. If the budget is approved, then we will go to HR department and say, like, the new position that we have created was intended for an architect position, and here's this money. So then we do an actual reclass of that position to its actual category. But we are not to put an architect one or a laborer one for whatever the position directly into the budget if it's a new one. So our office,
Even if it's new, it should be listed for what it is. If it's 61,000, it should be listed in this book as 61,000, not at 50.
I'm sorry, I want to clear that $61,000 is for the position. The professional support services is a contractual or consultant agreement money if needed we want to use. So that money is not for the architect one
So
position.
that's two different positions then.
The professional services support is not a position. It is, if needed, professional services support. We may hire a consultant or a contractual services to do any type of analysis that we may fall short.
Well, just to jump in on Berke here, the focus of that is actually going to be our payment processing system. So we've improved our payment processing system, but we need to improve it even further. So we're now able to pay our consultants through online and computerized processes, but we are not able to pay our construction managers. So we're going to move towards those processes, and we need a little help from an outside consultant. So the $50,000 is for consulting services, not for.
So it's not the new position.
That is not the new position right there.
Okay. All right.
Is that yours?
Service 189, page 177. Okay, this service major budget item notes that the fleet labor rate is increased from $98.14 to $106 within the internal service fund. Could you provide the budget committee with a breakdown of what the labor rate includes? And is this a flat rate for all labor to maintain Baltimore's fleet?
Yes, if I may again. So we do a full chargeback labor rate study to cover the services that are provided for the maintenance and then repair of the city's fleet. That includes the administration cost. That would be Fleet Chiefs Bob and everybody in the administration. But this $106 per labor hour rate is to only cover the wrench turning mechanics and their hourly services. So it is a zero sum. We look at the people that are providing maintenance services, and then we do an indirect cost allocation for the administrative services to cover Bob's salary, because internal service fund doesn't get any allocation directly from the general fund pot of tax money, so it needs to charge its rate just like the water bureau for the services they create. Historically, the first rate adjustment to $67 per hour was done in FY13 to increase up to $87.71. But since then, until the beginning of FY17, although the cost of providing services has gone up, including the cost of living for the salaries that are being paid to mechanics and the parts and other services that are being used for the fleet, gone up, but we have not increased the labor hour rate. Working with BBMR, we've done a 2-year phased-in approach to keep up, so that we could get rid of the structural deficits, because this undercutting of the dollar value was creating a situation where our revenues were less than the actual expenditures, and it was going into the fleet's fund balance that was supposed to be used only for capital expenditures. This year, in FY17, we increased the rate to 97.14 cents, and then in the beginning of FY18, the rate is going to go up to $106 per hour, and that should be able to cover the structural deficit moving forward. And then the plan is to tie that into some sort of an inflationary rate increase so that we don't have to come back and do a full-blown rate analysis every year.
On page 180.
Oh, I'm sorry, but, yeah,
Oh,
Steve.
just clearer, simpler, that's mainly for mechanics, pensions, salaries, health insurance, their vacation time too, all that stuff, so.
Okay. On page 183, service 731. The performance measure table on this page use a measure titled total cost of ownership per square feet. This number fluctuates from $7 to $6 to a projected $8 this fiscal year. This seems like a significant year-to-year flux. What factors are used to determine the total cost of ownership, and why do they change so much from year to year?
I'm sorry, I'm back again.
You again?
So I worked on the total cost of ownership per square feet. This is mainly due to the total cost of ownership of the building is the total cost that we provide, which is mainly utilities. So that would be the water, wastewater, the sewer, chilled water, the electricity cost of the buildings, and plus the labor hour effort and then the maintenance that we generally spend on that. What we do for an actual is we look at the budget and then divide by the total square footage. What happens in the real world is the utilities on the spot market and changes that could create a big fluctuation as to what it comes. So one of the reasons why you see the actuals and the targets are changing from year to year is mainly driven by the fixed cost that we don't have any control over.
Okay. All right, my final, I guess this would be a comment. I believe that DGS should have all city buildings. I don't think recreation and parks should be excluded, because if you look over the years where Mayor Rollins Blake was closing down rec centers because she said it was in deplorable condition, and if DGS were taking care of those buildings, I do believe that they would not have been in that kind of condition. So I don't know how we can get those buildings back under DGS control, because the Department of General Service is responsible for all city property. And you should have those rec centers included in your inventory. So I don't know what your thoughts on that, but my thoughts are Department of General Services should maintain all city buildings.
Mr. President, I would just point out that at the time when Mayor Rawlings Blake was closing the recreation centers, they were under the care of DGS, and I mean, that was different leadership, and Rec and Parks was very unhappy with the service that they were receiving, and that was the reason why we decided to allow Recreation and Parks to manage its own facilities. And certainly we can revisit that.
I think it's about time
but
that
was the
we
history.
revisit that and they get those buildings back, and we hold Mr. Sharkey accountable for the condition of those buildings. And I think it should be money in the budget to make sure that he can do that. All buildings should be under DGS, and we want them all back under DGS.
Councilman Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sharkey, how are you, sir? Thank you for your service to the city. One question and then actually a piece of advice. For Service 189, Fleet Management, if you don't have it with you, could you provide for the council a list of all the city's vehicles, how much we have of each one, and how many, how much it costs for each one? For example, one that I'm particularly interested in is how many street sweepers do we have, and how much does it cost for us to have them? How much do they cost us every year? How much does the maintenance on them cost us every year? So if you could provide that to the council, that would be greatly appreciated if we don't have it now.
Yeah, just give us a couple days. We can run those numbers easily.
So that's request number 13? 13?
Lucky number 13. And the second thing is, I actually walked in when I heard you talking about the aging of our mechanics and folks inside, and the need to get more younger people inside of the agency to do that work. My suggestion would be that we actually have 2 high schools that offer auto mechanic as a trade at Carver and Merville, where I went to high school, and that would be a perfect place for us to pluck kids from, because for example, when I was in high school, I got my brakes changed, my oil changed, and everything else done with my car while I was at school. So it would be a great place for us to start and maybe build a partnership where we can be funneling children straight from high school into the agency.
Gotcha. Yeah, just you missed the part where I talked before about that. So we have 3 kids right now, and they are working with us, and 2 of
Okay.
them as work-study students, and they're going to be with us over the summer. One of them joined the military. 2 of them are going to stay with us over the summer, and as long as they progress well, we're going to try to keep them as long as we can. And we've already done interviews for next year.
Good.
So we're going to have up to 6 for next year. And so it's actually really exciting because the kids have actually, we don't know if they need to learn a lot, but Bob has been really impressed with their attitude and how much they've learned over the time. So it's a big investment on our part, but we're really hoping it's going to pay off because we need, getting mechanics is a problem across the industry, and it's not just government having this problem, it's everyone. So we're going to have to start creating our own as the workforce ages out.
And thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, if I may, this is for really for Mr. Banks and Ms. Stokes. As we look at the rest of the agencies, especially in trade-type agencies, we talk about accounting and all of those kind of things, and where we have people doing clerical work. These are also trades that are offered in city schools. So as we look to, we have a lot of people aging out, we should look to those schools to bring the children straight in, so that, one, to my colleague from the 3rd District point, that more workers in the city will be city residents, and 2, that we're offering young people something after they obtain their high school diploma if they're not going off to college. Thank you.
Council President Young.
Thank you. And while we're on that note, the fire department has a very successful program where most of their recruits are coming out of the high schools. So I encourage DGS to do exactly what Councilman Scott has recommended, because I have encouraged the fire chief to continue to reach out to our schools. We have some very bright kids in those schools, and they're looking, all of them are not going to go to college, and some of them are going to want to work for the city of Baltimore, and that's a good place to get your future workers through those programs. I remember Dunbar High School had a mechanical program there as well, and because they were not able to get into jobs, Dunbar had to end that, because Dunbar was a health magnet school. But I know that Carver and Mervo do have those programs there. And if you could reach out to those schools,
Yeah.
and
So
you know,
we-
especially the 12th graders that can have the work study, they only need 1 or 2 credits, and they're not in school all day. They can be the candidates that you can look at.
No, just to be clear, so I guess we have 3 kids from, are they from Forest Park or are they from
I have 2 from Mervo and 1 from
West Side? And West Side.
And Forest Park didn't have anybody who they had ready to put up yet.
So we've got 3 kids in our shop right now. So like as of 7 o'clock this morning, the 3 kids showed
Yeah,
up
I
to
heard
our
that.
shop.
I heard
Oh,
that.
okay. And then
I
we've got
just want to encourage you to continue.
Oh, gotcha. No, we're done interviews for next year, so we're hoping to get the 6 to 8. We'll see. You know, we select the ones that really want to work with us. We're hoping to have 6 to 8 starting in. They're going to hopefully start over the summer and then work with us during the next school year. And those are juniors that are becoming seniors.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Pinkett.
Yes, Mr. Sharkey, can you tell me, what's the total number of surplus schools that are under DGS control?
Under DGS control, let me put that down. Okay, we got 3, 4. Right now we got 4 that are entirely under DGS control, being we are the primary agency.
Okay. And so the $462,000 is what it would cost annually to maintain those properties?
Leon.
Approximately, yeah.
And so of the 4 that are under your control, what's the status? Are they vacant? Are they being currently used? What?
So we have, again, vacant surplus schools. We have 4 vacant surplus schools. We have some other schools that we got 10 or 12 years ago that are not vacant. They have schools or charter schools leased out, but we have 4 vacant surplus schools that we're looking to find tenants for. A couple tenants have fallen through, but we also are we're working with the Surplus School Planning Committee, which is led by planning, to try to find other uses for them. We've got 1 surplus school that MOHS is sort of using. It's going to be a backup winter shelter, but I know that you have some other interest in that location. And so we've got another school that has some bites. Housing everybody's in board, HCD, BDC, looking to see other uses for the schools, if they meet with what the community needs and wants.
So just let me backtrack a little. So you have 4 currently. The other ones that you reference are no longer under our control? The other 10 or whatever?
Let me, so to back up, a surplus school comes to the city. It's a kind of convoluted process, whereas it used to be that the schools would say, hey, we're getting rid of the school, and then it would take them 6 to 9 months to go through all the sign-offs for us to take them over. We've made a deal with the schools that DGS, the day they say they're going to take it, we go work with them and take it over quickly, because we will take better care of the school than they will in that interim time period. So that's the first step. But the second step is when a school comes to the city, if another agency has a use for it, they will pick it up immediately. So there's some schools that, HCD will immediately take on as they come into the surplus, if they believe there's a great economic development potential or something else. And that was in the past, but now we've got 4 schools that have come to us because there is an interest from the other agencies or the other places.
And so you are currently working on a plan for how those properties will be reused.
Correct.
So we're in the midst of the 21st century school plan. So there are going to be more schools that are coming to you. So how many schools do you anticipate coming over the next 2 years?
What's the number, Terrence?
And most of them are gonna have bonds.
Uh-huh.
We got 1 school coming this summer.
Mr. Chair.
6 schools. So I don't know if this is a question or a concern. To me, and I could be wrong, it seems like we're always playing catch up. So here's an instance where we know schools are coming to us. You would think that we would be preparing development disposal plans in anticipation so that the time frame that we actually have the schools in our possession are, that time gap is as little as possible.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the perfect scenario would be we would just be the pass-through for a plan that's already in place for for a developer or some nonprofit or whatever to utilize, these buildings.
Agreed. I agree with you completely. The Surplus Schools Task Force is looking over those buildings as they go. So it's certainly not as they go, but as of right now, so that we've had, 10 meetings, 10 meetings on it, trying to build interest, each individual agency seeing if they can garner interest in the buildings or to review them. We've done analysis. We have older analysis, but as new needs come up, we'll put up new analyses of the buildings. And we're also working with real estate too, didn't mention them.
Steve, can we have a list of all of the 4 schools as well as any other schools that are under DGS control? Karan and Marguerite, that's number 14. And
Yeah.
I think the council president had one comment on what you said.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on Councilman Pinkett with the schools coming on board. Now, we know that the school system should know, and I know that you probably would know, that some of these schools that come over to us have bond debt on them. And the school system should be working closely with DGS if they come in to DGS to identify some of these schools that want to come and occupy some of these schools, because some of these schools have air conditioning in it, and we have some of our charters in unair conditioned buildings that the debt has been paid off. So we should be looking at swapping and getting those schools out of the buildings that doesn't have air conditioning into the ones that are closing with air conditioning, so that you understand what I'm saying? Most of the schools that we have that the charters are probably in, the bond debt has probably been paid on some of those.
If a school is surplused and it's not put back into use as an educational facility and there's state bond debt on it, then the city is on the hook for
Yeah,
that
I understand
debt.
that.
Yeah.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. The school system are arbitrarily making decisions to close schools that have a huge bond debt. And they should not be closing the ones that have the bond debt. They should be closing the schools that don't have a bond debt and moving those schools into those schools.
I got that. That's pretty smart. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, I got. So Andrew, what he's saying is, if a charter school's interested, instead of us paying off the bond debt up front, we move the charter school from one of our other buildings into that one.
Yeah.
I get you.
And
That's interesting.
I think when planning is here, we should continue this conversation because planning is chairing the task force on this. Finance is involved, DGS, other agencies. And when we had our hearing a couple weeks ago talking about our assigned fund balance, you saw a portion of that is related to surplus schools, both for the debt service as well as whether it's demolition or redevelopment. And I think we have 17 million set aside now, which probably isn't nearly enough.
Because the schools are causing us more and more money, when they're closing these schools that have bond debts in the millions.
Yeah, you're right.
And then they're facing a budget deficit.
Right.
And they're including all that stuff on the city.
Yeah.
But we have to pay those bond debts off.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Thank you.
No, excellent point. I just had one other question. I think over the past couple years, is it the Eastern Health Clinic was assessed? There was an assessment made of that building, and it was determined that it was best to purchase or to identify another location for the relocation of that clinic.
Don't stop me on that.
We're picking all the good stuff, huh?
Councilman Stokes, before you go any further, should understand that there was a bond bill that was passed about 10 years ago to redo Eastern, and he took it and sent it somewhere else. And I haven't forgotten that. That's a sore spot for me.
Okay, I wasn't trying to go to the sore spot. I was trying to create another spot.
No, again, that was before my time.
Let me ask my question. I was curious to know if a similar type assessment was happening in West Baltimore on the health clinic or health facilities available to West Baltimore residents, as was made in East Baltimore.
Well, a big part of that was that we also had an opportunity that doesn't come by, was that there was a vacant health clinic available in the area. But we have reviewed some of the West Baltimore, but we can look at the North Avenue, Druid Health Clinic again and see what else needs to be done. I'd like to do some facade improvements there and see what else, and look at the building holistically.
Okay, yeah, I mean, once this new shiny East Baltimore clinic comes online, I'm just kind of putting it out there. I don't think that the residents or the electeds in West Baltimore are going to be so happy. Just putting it out there.
No. Gotcha. Well, hey, listen, if there's a bond bill to put big money into West Baltimore, yeah. Yeah.
Robin, you better speak up.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Steve, when we meet with planning, which it looks like is going to be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., can you send someone from your team, whoever's handling the school stuff, so we can continue that discussion, please? That's 6:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Dorsey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All the faces turning back towards the one person.
I'm going to try to stay out of the specifics of my district level issue here, but I think that there's a point I'd like to discuss that it's illustrative of. The Hartford Senior Center received $500,000 from the state recently to make improvements to the building, and I understand that DGS has pushed its commitment to improve the building back a couple of years, which is and it's a #1 priority for capital improvements for the health department. I'm sorry I haven't had an opportunity to discuss this further previously, but this is just my discussion with the health department is that there's some hesitancy to commit to making improvements to the building because if they spend the state's money, it would involve repaying it if the building then leaves the health department's possession, and whether they can make the full improvements without the immediate investment from DGS. reason that they're hesitant, I guess, to even move forward at the moment is because they've been told by DGS that they need a $40,000 to $50,000 assessment of the property in order just to have an estimate of what it would cost to do repairs to the building. I come from a background of project management. I know that a significant part of this particular project would be a new roof. I have sold corrugated metal decking for a living, so I know what it's like to do estimating for the sale of that and how to evaluate buildings to some degree. To hear that it would cost $40,000 to $50,000 to do a simple estimate on the conditions and what it would cost to repair this building is a little disconcerting. And I'm wondering how many, how it comes that it could cost that much to do an estimate for repairs to a building, and how many of these this level of estimates the DGS requires on an annual basis, and where the line item for that would be in the budget, so I can better understand that, and why it wouldn't make sense to have somebody else do this in-house who could perform many of these estimates on an annual basis at a fraction of the cost that it would be to hire somebody outside. I assume that's the only way it could cost this much is to hire somebody outside to do it. Why it wouldn't make more sense to have that done internally. I hope you understand what I'm asking, and maybe you can give me some answers about that.
Okay, can you start with the first question, then just go line by line?
Sure. How can it cost $40,000 to do an assessment or an estimate on a building?
Typically, when DGS engages a design consultant, which would be either a structural engineer or an architect, depending on what it is we're looking at, we go into an assessment looking at all the system components and the building in its entirety. So we're not simply looking at just the roof to get an estimate of a material cost to replace the roof. We're looking at globally the building. We're looking at foundational issues. We're looking at structural issues. We're looking at systems, age of the HVAC system. Does the HVAC system need to be redesigned to come into compliance with today's codes? Are there improvements to be made? Are there particular components of the building that need to be upgraded so that it services a 21st century clientele? So we're not limiting our assessment of the building to simply one system. And typically that's the first level of analysis that occurs before we go into the detailed design phase. So our studies or our assessments give the consultant the first peek at what the project is going to be. So for instance, if we know that we are looking at an overall renovation of a building, which is going to need to have design performed by licensed engineers or architects, we don't have licensed engineers or architects on staff. That is something that we need to engage an outside firm to provide us with, because we have to provide, from a permitting perspective, plans, specifications that are signed and sealed in order to comply with certain permitting issues and liability issues and so on and so forth. So,
you just said that we don't have engineers or architects on staff.
I said we don't have licensed engineers or architects on staff.
Why not?
Because it has been very difficult, given our constraints with our salaries, to hire people that actually have that upper level of qualification. You can be an architect, but you may never have sat for the architectural boards, and therefore you're not a licensed architect, and therefore you can't sign and seal drawings, which doesn't allow us to get building permits and other analyses and assessments done by the planning department, which would allow us to get our building constructed.
Then I guess my question is, how much do we spend annually on work that we have to contract out to do that, because I'd like to know why it's impossible for us to hire somebody in-house to do that for what I can imagine would be significantly less money. I mean, if we got to pay an architect or an engineer $100,000 to do something, and we're handing out 10 of these projects a year at $50,000, we just saved ourselves $400,000. Why on earth can't we just hire somebody in-house?
Without being too critical of
Yes.
the HR department,
Or no?
Be critical. Be critical.
I'll burn them
Be
down when they
critical.
come in front of me, too.
One of my favorite.
I mean,
ages.
are you,
Be critical.
was there,
No,
ano-
I'd like,
you want me to step back? Or
No,
is there-
the salaries are not competitive. We've made attempts, and we're also looking to try to, we've also tried to grow in-house staff to encourage them to get their licenses, but it hasn't worked out as well recently, but we're hoping to, grow that in the future.
Just so you know, I asked the finance department earlier about this same issue, and because I think it's a valuable financial assessment to make, and one that I think that they should be reinforcing as a better practice for your agency, and others in the city like DOT that rely very heavily on outside contractors to perform this kind of work. So if you could provide a dollar amount to this committee for design, contracting, these kind of evaluative contracts.
We'll give us a couple days, send it.
Thank you very much. I think that's,
so Councilman Dorsey, your request was, can you just repeat the request itself? A dollar value?
A dollar amount on how much we spend annually, I guess, on these kind of contracts, just to for preliminary design kind of stuff that we could perform in-house if we had the staff.
So,
We can give you.
I don't want to, I'm trying to not shortchange what I'm asking for. I want to really capture the total value of this, and I don't have the language to explain the breadth of the kind of contracts that I think that we could be doing. So if I could get some assistance in trying to figure out what those, how you characterize or describe those types of contracts, I don't know.
I guess we'll send
Design.
over our best information and then try to notate it as best as possible, and then we can work from there.
Okay, good. Karan, that's 15. Councilman Henry, very quick
Yeah, just
follow-up.
very quick follow-up. I think I'm not sure who this is for. Why do we need licensed architects for the cost estimating portion? I mean, I get that you need to have a licensed architect to do the sealed drawings to present.
That's a good point.
But for the very initial cost estimating, why does that need a licensed architect?
that component does not need a licensed architect, and in fact, as we have in recent years, brought people that are, I don't want to say better trained, but we had made a conscious decision to bring people with the skill set that is analogous to a licensed architect, but maybe just short of that line, that licensure line. And so we could put together a list to say, you know, we are now doing in-house assessments and studies. I think it gets complicated when you get into, for instance, the HVAC system, which really is a mechanical, electrical, plumbing issue. And a licensed architect would need to rely on an MEP engineer to do that level of analysis. So many times when we're doing these assessments of buildings, we're engaging a consulting firm that offers us the broad spectrum of architectural, MEP, structural, all under one cap. Whereas if we only used our in-house architects, there still would be a slight shortfall when it came to things that are system specific.
Okay, that makes sense. And so I'm going to wonder if maybe Councilman Dorsey's request could be expanded to include an analysis of how often you end up doing that, so that you could see whether or not it would be worthwhile to have one person from each of those different subjects in-house, so that you could still be providing all of this analysis in-house.
Absolutely.
Okay. Council President Young?
Thank you. I want to go back to the HR piece. HR should not be telling your agency how much you should be paying your architect if it's within the scope of salaries that's where it should be, right? So if you're having a problem with HR, get back with us, because we're talking about saving money. The city have a structural deficit just like the state have one, and we're looking to save every dime that we can save. I even brought up one year about us having our own engineering department, our own architectural department. We're wasting a lot of money when we can do stuff in-house if we pull all of those pieces together. We should not be out fishing for all these other firms that are going to charge us an arm and a leg when we could grow our own within our own agency. We have some bright people work for the city of Baltimore. We have some great engineers. We have some great architects. And we need to start growing our own and save this money and stop spending it out on contractors. And I'm not against contractors, but good God, we can save a ton of money if we start utilizing our resources that we have within city government. We have engineers, we have architects. Why can't we go over to whatever agency it is and say, hey, look, we need preliminary drawings? And they should be able to provide that. They all get paid by the city of Baltimore, the citizens of Baltimore. And it should not be where they can't do it because they're not in your agency. We should create an agency that have engineers and architects within city government. We got to stop pissing our money away.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've been joined by Councilman Ed Reisinger from the 10th District. Just a reminder, we have about 9 minutes left planned for this session. I'm going to ask that the 3 remaining colleagues that have questions, please try to be as expeditious as possible. Councilman Chris Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So most of my questions were already asked by Councilman Pinkett related to the school surplus. So I'll reserve some of the follow-up I had for the meeting with the planning department, because a lot of my questions were around like community process and input. The one thing I missed was kind of 2 parts referring back to that though. Typically, how long does it take from a property, a school in particular, to getting on under your control and back to another agency? Is there like a typical window of time that occurs? And 2, I've received, so there's obviously a larger conversation around when we actually start the clock of planning for this. So there's a school in my neighborhood that's going to be closing, and there's been no, to date, because it hasn't officially closed yet, no planning done yet, and I get a lot of questions from my constituents about what that's going to become, but also concerns around security of the building and maintenance of the building. Can you talk a little bit about that, around what's done to make sure that no one's breaking inside to steal the copper pipes, or that the grass isn't getting too high, that kind of thing, because the concern is that these buildings could become an eyesore if they sit too long.
Gotcha. So again, I don't know which school you're specifically speaking of, or if it's in the next.
Rocknell Heights.
Rocknell Heights. What year is Rocknell? Oh, okay. But either way, so the surplus school committee is reviewing each one's with a focus on the next 2 to 3 years. Some of the schools, I would say, in terms of your question about how long it takes, it could be very quick if there's a lot of interest, or say another city agency wants or has a need. If not, if there's low interest or low value in the property, say it's not a desirable area and the school has a high demolition cost or a lot of problems with it that it can't be reused easily, it could take longer. To your second question about the management of the building, so the ones that fall under DGS control, and I believe more are going to be coming towards us in the future, this is, I think, part of why Mr. Klein's asking for more money. We have started with security patrols at our 4 vacant surplus schools. They visit each of our schools. Probably, what do you think they get to each one, 4 or 5 times a day? Probably 4 or 5 times a day. Those needs will expand in the future, of course. We maintain the buildings as needed, make sure the windows are locked. Each time a new school comes to us, we have a process now where we get the keys earlier from the school system, so there's no lag time where they're not really interested in it. We want to get it as fast as we can so we can lock up the building, make sure it's secure as possible, and keep people out as possible. We also mow the lawns and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you. I first just want to thank you. I remember when your agency first started up, and through your leadership, it has grown and become an integral part of the city. So I thank you for that. And a shout out for, I think I worked most oftenly with Terrence. That has been very helpful and continue to be helpful. And then just another statement, I notice a number of our colleagues have mentioned, and I guess we continue to do this, and because we try to find and really want to bring back government career paths that was very prevalent in this city. And you yourself, with your background in starting up and succeeding in what you do successfully now, too, I know you're an advocate for apprenticeship, and I think some of our colleagues have been just kind of mentioning, you know, auto mechanics, HVAC, architect. These are things that the state already has the job specs for to start the apprenticeship again, and of course ASME has been the strong proponent of being the partners as well, and that we are one of the main cities in this country that have a government still have apprenticeship, and we need to strengthen that. And I just want to put it out there that you should be one of the agencies that can take the lead in maybe kind of doing that, with you mentioning some students that you already have working, and you would want to kind of hold on to them and get them into, even if it's just starting with one person. And I can help connect you with that as well through the state apprenticeship system. So I'm reaching out for you for that. And also, I agree with my colleagues and the president that mentioned Rec and Park should also be back to under DGS. Just my experiences with one rec center, Towanda, and not having things just the process I've been going through with Rec and Parks, trying to get things that need to be done at Towanda Rec Center has just been a nightmare, and maybe it's too much for them right now, and I agree it should come back under you. And then my question, we're going to be having a hearing soon on, again, this crazy grass cutting problem throughout this city. And, you know, I'm wondering if there could be a strategy where maybe DGS could be the agency to kind of take over this grass cutting thing. I just had a problem recently this morning, and it's the same spot, and it's a small spot, probably as long as these two tables. It's a bus stop, and a bench is there, and the grass is grown up to the bench, but that spot belongs to a city agency. It took me 5 days to, of course, we automatically kind of send things to transportation, but of course they're going to check and see what agency owns it. And, you know, the grass is up to the bench. The homeowners are going to they're not going to touch that spot. But every year I have to make a call to figure out, because it's not my job to keep a record of who is supposed to cut that grass and call them to cut it. And that's just a small thing. So with you owning buildings, I can kind of see you pinpointing, at least having records of all the ownerships of public spaces or something. It's just other cities seem to get it, and we just have a problem between April and September with getting grass cut on city lots and places. This particular spot I found is owned by housing, and, you know, of course they are dealing with other stuff. That grass is probably, and it does it every year, it grows up past the seat. It's near a hospital and a school where people, you know, KIPP Academy and Sinai, where people use this bus spot all the time, and it just bothers me that this one spot of grass, the city can't find out and keep it cut at least once a month. Do you have a comment on the grass cutting?
I'd say that we've, grass cutting is difficult. We've gotten a new contract last year for our buildings, and it was with a really good minority vendor, and the guy is cutting the grasses himself, and it's really worked out well. I think a lot of times for us, he does a much better job than we would, and he just does a great job. So we've mainly focused on our grass. We're not perfect, but we've gotten better due to his assistance. And, we're always looking to improve our grass
Do you
cutting.
see it difficult for just one agency to be responsible for that one task? Can that happen?
I don't know. I'd prefer not to. I don't want to make.
It's not your decision.
I don't
so
want to
you
make
wanna
decisions for
touch
other
it.
agencies that way. So, but thank you. Oh, thank you for the things. Also, just to mention,
Steve,
Oh, yeah.
Councilwoman, are you good?
Pardon?
Are you good?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off, but one last question, and then Councilman Stokes.
This is just a statement. Is there a process in place for nonprofits or developers to bid on your surplus property so that it reduces your maintenance budget once the bond debt has been removed from those schools?
Yeah. So, if they're looking to rent or lease, it usually goes through the real estate department, which is under the comptroller. But if they're interested in another larger development, then yes. And we're going to be putting out RFPs for the individual schools as things progress. It's going to take a little while to get it all set up, but there is going to be open calls for any schools that come up and we have really no city use for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, as always, thank you for the responsiveness of the folks in your agency and you as well. We really appreciate it. And we are going to go into recess now until 1 p.m. when we have DOT coming in.
Thank you.